Hello and welcome to WorkRise Shorts. I am Nicole Short-Freeman. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan. But today I am here on behalf of WorkRise, a research to action network that is focused on jobs, workers, and mobility, hosted by the Urban Institute. We have a great conversation lined up today with Nathalie Gazzaneo, who is the co-director of the Project on Workforce at Harvard University. We're going to dive into their data called the Workforce Almanac, which is a first of its kind open source directory of nearly 17,000, that is breathtaking, workforce training providers across the United States. So Nathalie, it is great to have you. Thank you so much for joining us today and welcome.
Thank you, Nicole. It's absolutely my pleasure to be sitting with you. And as I was saying, I wish we could flip the table and I could be interviewing you so we could learn from your amazing experience as well. So, but very happy to share about the Almanac and the work you're doing, the Project on Workforce, and a pleasure being with you.
That is super, super. So let's start here, Nathalie. Tell us exactly what problem were you trying to solve with your research?
Sure. I think when we think and we look at this beta version of the Almanac that is already released, this was our attempt at, exploring a question that I could put it like simply like, how are different American communities served by workforce training providers? So what we see, the dots we see in the map, where each dot is a workforce training provider, and then where we have layers in the map that tell us more about the racial outlook of different states and counties, about the unemployment rates in these different like geographic areas, about the poverty rates, is us trying to step in and tackle this question. I think more broadly, and as we think more about the future, there is another very strong problem or question that we are eager to explore, which is what are the occupations or what are theoretically the career trajectories where each of these dots are putting American communities on. You know what I mean? So what are the occupations that these workforce training providers in aggregate are training for? I think these are two big problems. And two also, enticing questions that really pushed us forward and keep pushing us forward in the Almanac.
Well, let's push further into that. Why is it a problem?
Yeah. So first thing, like for context, is this system, the workforce training system in the US, has historically been treated like in fragmentation. So some people would work and would know a lot and would consider a lot higher education institutions. Others would be more involved in apprenticeships. Others would be more involved in the nonprofit sector. Others would be all into the WIO eligible providers. And when we started a project and the project is started, like there was like this realization that, wait, what? But these different types of training providers, they may well be serving the same goals, which is to offer venues of short-term training for American workers in a very like clear service to job attainment. But because they were in a way like hidden in fragmentation, they were like part of different major or the joint strategies and these joined systems, including data systems and evidence systems, like they were usually not seen as part of a whole, right? So building on why this is a problem, we think that it's really costly for diverse communities in the US to not be able to access, effective and equitable workforce training options. And this is especially true right now in the present moment where Emerging technologies rapidly make a good number of skills obsolete and make other skills highly necessarily, make them like highly in demand. And when we add to that, the challenge of finding and skilling talent in a tight labor market that is already marked by occupational segregation. So I think this is all part of the why we decided to do this. Why did you see that as a problem, and how we could help advance understanding and knowledge and evidence a little bit in those regards.
So Natalie, furthering that point, tell us what makes the Workforce Almanac unique.
Yeah, I think as I think about your question, I can think of two aspects, right? I think first what the Workforce Almanac is, but I also want to share a little bit more about how it was built. But let me go first, like to the what and what makes it special. I think it's an integrative data effort. Speaking of those silos and about that fragmentation that I mentioned before, it's really an attempt to break that and to come up with a more system level overview and understanding of how the workforce development sector, and specifically training, is serving American workers and American communities, to identify where these training providers are located, what are the types, and in the future to better understanding how these constellation of workforce training providers and dots in the map, they are as a system helping put American workers and learners in upward mobility trajectories. So I think this is part of what the Almanac is, and I think what it is quite unique. But I also could not share a few words about how it was built, and that makes me and our team really really proud. It was a research product, a research to practice product that benefited from a strong female and diverse research team that was heavily based on conversations ranging from discovery conversations to feedback sessions, pre-launch sessions with practitioners. So we talked extensively with people on the field who works on workforce development, who work on training, who work on policy making this space, to understand their needs, their pain points and the gaps in the system, and how the Almanac could help them advance their own work in the field. So I think, to me, this how it was built makes the Almanac unique and special.
So when you think about your stakeholders, so practitioners, policymakers, employers, certain sectors, even workers, who do you think is best positioned to help advance the work, and what specifically would you want them to do?
Yes, this is a great question, and it's really important, right? Because all that we don't want is for the Almanac to be put on a shelf and never used. I like to see the Almanac as a connecting tissue for decision makers and practitioners in this space. So just to provide an example, and this is also based on the interviews, the product discovery and feedback interviews we've run with practitioners in the field. So we've heard from policymakers, including policymakers working in the local and state workforce levels, that one of the uses that they could make of the Almanac was to have a broader view of the providers in their area, and to put it together with more granular local data and evidence they have to help inform their resource allocation strategies, in order to understand how the different providers are serving the different areas under their jurisdiction. I can also totally imagine a local and regional team using the Almanac as a as an overview or like a list of names for training providers that they want to reach out to get more in-depth local feedback and to have conversations or to engage in local and regional initiatives. We also heard from workforce training providers themselves that the Almanac can be a powerful tool for them to have a better understanding of other training providers who have a coverage in either in areas where they are already offering training or areas where they intend to offer training in the future. And it is not just to compare with each other and to benchmark, but also to think about synergies and potential collaborations across different types of providers. So an apprenticeship sponsor might want to understand better what the community college is offering, and having and being able to see that in a dot kind of approximates the distance between them. We also heard from stakeholders like intermediaries or employers that the Almanac can help them have a better view of the landscape of workforce training provision in their areas, and that can potentially help them to either find training opportunities for workers or to better identify pools of talent that can go from training to work opportunities that they can offer or that they can intermediate. So these are just like a couple of clear use cases and how different a clear group of end users told us the Almanac could help them advance their missions and their action on the ground.
It is just fantastic. Nathalie, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing more about the context and the background and your hopes and aspirations for the work. We are really looking forward to hearing more from you in the future on this project. And for our viewers, you can learn more about the Almanac at www.workforcealmanac.com.
Thank you, Nicole, and thank you, WorkRise team. Really great to be with you.
Thanks all.